Understand what it was that I saw, and I don't share a lot about it with people because people tend to be really like off-putting. When you share things that don't make sense to them or they haven't experienced and they can't quite figure out what in the world. So when we
They'll tear
moved
you
up
up.
there, we up there totally off grid. So we had two tents, and we built a three-walled cabin as our kitchen. That's how we were for the first 2 years up Cottonwood. So when I was about 5, we were just starting to build our cabin, and I used to wander off all by myself. So my dad stuck me on a motorcycle when I was 3, and off I went. And so I wandered off in the woods all the time by myself, and I had a lot of odd little experiences. But there are 3 in my life that are quite they're more significant than some of the others. I saw and heard a lot of things as a little kid. Wandered by myself. I was pretty feral, so I was alone a lot. But one in particular time, we were building our cabin, and up above us was another building site, and we were talking about building another cabin up there for my cousins to live at. So we were up there, and it was just past dark. And we were standing on the edge, and I remember my parents being out in front of me, and they were standing right on the edge because it just dropped off. It was leveled off by a cat at the top of a hill, and it was all dropped off below. And they were standing there, and I was standing right behind them, and we saw eyes out in front of us. And I remember my dad being like, what the hell is that? And we're trying to figure out what it is, can't figure out what it is. And we see it, we hear it, we smell it, but that was all. Then it was gone. And so not a lot was done about that, except that the next couple days after that, we would walk up the hill and go walk to that spot during the daytime where my dad was trying to make sense of how in the world he saw eyes in front of him. There was no trees right there, so it wasn't an animal up in a tree. He was just standing there with nothing in front of him, but there were eyeballs looking right at him. And the drop off from where he was standing was so far down that, it had to have been something that was, a solid 10 feet, from my memory of what it had to have been. Well, after that kind of was like something that just went into the memory bank, into the past, and we went on about our business. Well, when I was about 8 years old, my dad and I were the only ones living up there at that point, and I would go wander off into the woods like my usual self, and I had gone a particular way that I always avoided because I always felt like it wasn't safe in a particular direction, so I never went that way. But one day it drew my attention. There was a trail, probably from deer, that went back, and I followed it. I get back into this trail, and I'm way away from the cabin, all by myself out there. And all of a sudden, I felt this trembling of the ground, and I heard just something. I heard movement in a distance, significant, something large. And I thought bear. I'm a little kid, but I live out in the woods, and I know to avoid. We have bears up there. So I knew to avoid that. And I was standing by this tree as I'm feeling like this slight movement of the ground, very slight movement. And I'm hearing this sound, and I'm standing in front of this tree that was a very large tree that had some bear marks down it. Part of why I thought, a bear. But I noticed that there was this just stench that came into, as I'm standing there, a stench came into that local area where I was. And I noticed these hairs that were in the tree, and I had picked them off and thought it was odd because they didn't look like bear fur, which I thought at first it would be because there were scratch marks. Because I was young, I was only about 8 years old, I figured, it must have been bear. But I remember sitting there and smelling them and thinking, man, it was nasty, and putting it back down. And as I'm standing there, the ground's shaking more, and I'm watching the branches from these big bushes and small trees through the woods. I'm watching them all moving. So something came down through there. I could feel the weight of it because it was so heavy that it was actually making the ground move a little bit. And I was watching the trees and the tall brush just literally part. I'm watching it come down this hill, parting. And I was terrified, truly terrified. And as it came down through, I just kind of hovered into the ground and just hid myself, thinking that whatever it was, hopefully it didn't hurt me. And I felt it go by. I never saw it, but I saw all of it moving. And when I finally got back up again, as it was gone beyond me, I got back up, and you could see a clear trail. Like it took down everything it ran through. So that stuff I was watching move, literally when it went over, moved out and then over, smashed it down, broke all of the branches. There were small trees that were broken. It left a trail where it went. I don't know because I didn't see it. So I don't know for a fact what that was. But I've always thought that's what it was. Go forward several years from that, and some minor little things, you know, that I would experience out in the woods, because I like being out in the woods all the time by myself. And my dad was living up on a piece of property that he bought up by Waits Lake, just past Waits Lake. And he had gotten in trouble with the local law. And the feds came in, actually, and escorted him from his house down the hill and put him in jail. So while he was gone, I went to go check, because he still lived off-grid. He went from living off-grid Upper Cottonwood to living off-grid at this place. So I went up to go check on his place to make sure everything was fine. Everything was all locked up. All was good. Well, it was wintertime, because he was arrested on, I think it was New Year's Eve. It was right after Christmas, so it was like day after Christmas night, or it was New Year's night. It was something significant like that. And so I go up, you know, a couple days later, and I'm checking on everything, and there are these massive footprints going all around his trailer. I had to walk up the driveway. He couldn't drive up it. There was too much snow. So I had to walk all the way up the driveway. All the footprints that I followed up were all of because the FBI had walked up there, and the local sheriff and all of that. So all of that was going up, and I could follow their tracks. Nobody had that big of feet. He had some big feet, but not that big. So I walk all the way up, and I'm going to go walk around, and I see these tracks. They come, I saw them first around his trailer, going a circle around his trailer, and I thought, where in the world did those come from? So I found where they were, and I could see where it had come in from the woods and had walked down and walked around his trailer and then walked back in the same direction. But they were so large that, and they were deep. They were deep in the snow, like what you were describing, that they couldn't have been a person walking in there, because they wouldn't have sunk that far, right. You know, and if they had that big of feet, obviously it would have been a very large human to have that big of feet, you know. Yeah. You know, if I was to get on
around in bare feet,
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, because they weren't shoes. The prints weren't from shoes. I couldn't make out real closely because I got really uncomfortable. Okay. You know, with just the presence. I could feel the presence of something that was not normal. And so I didn't feel real good about it. So I kind of looked and made sure everything was okay, and then focused on those footsteps and thought, man, something's not right. And I was already a believer since I was a kid that there was something out there that, you know, we hadn't really gotten real proof of. And that I had those experiences from when I was young that would make people go, well, you know, well, that's odd. At least it made me think that, you know, maybe I wasn't crazy. But
so I do have a couple questions. Those eyes, were they glowing by chance? What color? Like a orange?
I honestly don't remember. I honestly don't. But I was young, like 5 years old.
What about?
I remember them glowing. Off of my memory, I mean, I could go and ask my dad what color he remembers saying. If I was to say, it would be like some sort of an orangish, yellowish kind of a glow. Mm-hmm. But my memory is a little bit sketchy about what I was seeing. Other than that, I can still picture it though. So I can still picture an outline of something standing there, human-like, very tall, and eyes that glow. I remember that very clearly.
What about the smell? What did it smell like? Death?
I did not smell anything when we had that experience right there on the edge of that flattened area on the top of the mountain. It was just off of it. So, it's just a small little hill mountain up in the mountains, but a small little knob that had been leveled off. And it was probably 10 feet away from us, outward-wise, but it was far down below.
I've had an experience
so
like that.
We didn't smell it that time.
I was coming up the backside of Flowery Trail, and I was in a Mustang I was in a 66 Mustang, so the lights weren't very bright, but I came around this corner, and I saw red eyes. They saw me, and they went like that. Yeah. They ducked and moved, and I went back the next morning.
That's something different that that my memory won't quite hone in at what the color of the eyes were, but I do know They were not normal. Like if you see eyes glowing of a deer, they weren't that color.
Right. That's
They
what I'm
were
saying.
something different. They were a different color glow, and they were eyes. You could tell that's what they were. But I want to say like a
And
yellowish.
big and far apart.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I saw. And the same scenario, I saw the eyes looking at me under between the guardrail and the road. When I went back the next morning, I expected to see some prints from like a cougar or something. These prints were all the way down at the bottom of the embankment. So the same scenario, whatever that was, had to be at least 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And the tracks were obvious. They were down in the grass and they walked like this, and then they went back where they came and off into the woods.
Right.
But the same scenario. Now also, one of my old students on my school bus route lived up there where you're talking about, behind Waits Lake, up towards Red Marble, and he was telling me about some noises that he was hearing up in there that were awful, and he didn't recognize them from being any animal or anything. So it's possible, and this was probably 5 years ago,
Right.
so it's possible that whatever you saw might still maintain that area.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Have you ever heard anybody talking about whether or not there is some ability for whatever this creature is, that all of us have had some sort of a connection to seeing or knowing that it exists? Have you heard people talk about them having some sort of an ability to not be visible to us? Like maybe there's some sort of a connection with them, like teleporting in a way.
Yeah, that's the stuff I was talking about with this other gal, and there's
They
a lot
seem
of
to be
people that
connected
believe
to
in that.
specific mountains.
Yes, but this is what I believe about it, is that it's like any other predator out there in the woods. They have a keen sense of that,
Right.
where we don't. They could see us or hear us coming from a mile away, and they don't have to stand there and let us see them.
Right.
And they can blend with the territory.
Yeah.
They just like a cougar. A bear doesn't try to hide itself, but a cat will crouch down. There's things that they say about their Squatch too, and one of those things is that is referred to as spider crawl, where these things can get down and crawl on their bellies, so they don't have. If you could be driving down, they could be standing there, and as soon as you come around a corner, they drop down. You drive by them, and you'll never see it.
Right.
Same with a cat.
Yeah.
But this is what I
You get
think.
the feeling that they are not dangerous, but that people infiltrate groups of people trying to be like, let's prove this is real. That people infiltrate it to try and spread fear amongst people who do not feel fear about it, but spread fear to try and disengage people from actually going out and looking.
Well, there might be that possibility. I just think that mostly is a lot of ignorance.
Yeah.
Ignorance in itself is not a bad thing, unless it's willing. But the fact is that nobody really knows the nature of these things.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that science doesn't need proof. They already know they exist.
Mm-hmm.
But for your average human like you or me or other people, even some of these Bigfoot researchers that think they got it all figured out, they don't know the nature of this thing. They haven't been able to study them.
Right.
If it is a spiritual thing, then maybe you can add all of those things like cloaking or whatever.
Well, it wouldn't take much. Think about a deer.
Yeah.
If you go into the woods and you're wearing bright orange, the deer can't see that. So our visual ability may be limited by what our eyeballs can actually see. So therefore, if it has something about it that makes it to where it's not always visible to us, kind of like we aren't always visible to a deer, or sometimes we're very visible to a deer, but orange is not one that deer pick up. That's why hunters wear orange, because deer can't see it, so it doesn't trigger them to run away. But it keeps them from getting shot by another hunter,
Right. Yeah.
So, it could be something like that there's just a genetic difference between our eyes and what we can see and what they are capable of kind of cloaking themselves as in a way, because we aren't visually able to always see it.
So this is how I feel about it, is that I don't discredit any spiritual aspect or thing, which I would say that would probably fit in that category. I don't look for that, because I know that if I was looking for that,
I don't
I'm
think
going
I'd
to find...
even look at that at all myself.
Right,
Like, totally remove the spiritual part
Exactly,
of it. Totally remove that,
yes.
and just look at what physically.
That's what
That's what I'm referring to when I talk about how deer cannot see orange. So you go into the woods hunting with an orange vest because the deer can't see it. So you're only triggering other hunters not to shoot you.
Well, think of it like this. I mean, you might be driving and you see the shadows in the tree line. They could blend with that.
Yeah.
Because, maybe they got a dark fur, maybe they don't have a dark fur.
Right.
I've heard in this area supposedly albino or white. I mean, you've heard all kinds of things, but for what I'm doing is searching for the physical evidence, and if it proves to me to be more than just physical, then I will understand that. But the reason I leave out the spiritual is because if you're looking for spiritual things, you will find them.
Yeah.
You don't have to invite that. It'll come to you.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, I don't want, that's, not what I'm looking for. And then if that's the case, then I'm already have a pretty good idea of what to think about it.
Right.
But as far as like
if you totally find the evidence of it, there's also that part of it that you get to a certain point where you have to make a decision of, am I blasting this out and this evidence out if nobody thinks I'm crazy and they go, yep, that's real? It's like getting a hold of one and dragging it in. See, everyone, here it is. And what would happen to a species that has been able to hide from our government in a way, from scientists, people who would want to abuse it, like, there comes that line too of making that decision between our own desire to find something and prove it, like for ourselves and those around us who really want to show this is real, and like,
See, I'm not on that page with those people. Those people, they got this idea that they're going to be the one to shoot it and put it on the table for science, and
which would be horrible.
And the way I think is that those people are, they're not actually abiding by the facts, because the fact is science knows all about it. I'm sure of that. It's been hidden. I mean, the evidence has been hidden even since Mount St. Helens eruption, when they found Bigfoot bodies in the Toutle River when they were dredging for carcasses and stuff. And so, even before that, there's Bossberg. The Bossberg thing, that's one that I refer to a lot, was that this thing, against what another searcher told me, they don't swim, they transport or teleport or whatever. He said, that's BS, because the evidence of this thing around that garbage dump went down to the river. Not only did it swim across, but it swam up river and across to the other side and came out, and they found the footprints there. The original people that were in that investigation, Roger Patterson's gone, John Green's gone. I think Renee DeHinden and Grover Krantz are maybe still around, but that's a physical thing. That's not spiritual.
Right.
And I don't have the answers. I'm still investigating, of course. I'm still looking for evidence that I can try to follow, but I'm at the same.
But to know where people have seen them,
Yeah.
where those experiences have happened.
Yeah, it was a pattern.
Do you have a big map where you've mapped out where people tell you that they've had these experiences at?
Well, I've maintained all, like in the Sand Canyon area, all the way down as far as I can go towards the south and towards the north, up into the Pend Oreille National Wildlife, the refuge, where I found evidence. I was on National Forest 160 when my wife and I got screamed at. So the pattern is the water sources. There's old homesteads in the area that you won't ever see. One of them that I know of, you'd have to hike through the woods to get to it. But that place still has apple trees that produce apples.
How much have you looked into? Oh, my brain just took a moment. Off Deer Creek Road. It's on the backside of my dad's property.
Oh, I know Deer Creek Road.
Yeah, I go up Deer Creek Road, and the road that cuts off and goes over to Waits Lake.
Yeah, I've been on that road.
I don't know why I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you know the old town, the old community that was up there that's gone?
That was up.
Little Sweden.
Yeah, Little Sweden.
The community of Little Sweden.
Yeah.
That whole community, have you heard the stories about why they all left?
No?
Overnight, gone. All of them.
Really?
Because of Bigfoot. That is the old stories from the community in that area.
That's cool. I need to investigate more on that too.
Yeah,
yes, I have.
You should go check out that area. My dad knows a little bit about that.
There's more than Little Sweden. If you go up further, you can cut across, and it'll take you out to up off Red Marble, which I tried. Yeah, I tried to do that. I did it once, and the next time I came through there, they put a big dirt mound, so you couldn't calling it private property. Little Sweden, I might have to talk to you some more about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to thank you for this part of recording with me, and I'll share it with you when I download it. But
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.